On the show today, we turn our attention to the continent's boldest economic integration experiment, the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, launched in 2021 to transform Africa into the world's largest single market, uniting 55 countries, 1.3 billion people, and a combined GDP of over $3 trillion. But almost 5 years in, the reality is mixed. From shipping delays, logistics costs, infrastructure gaps, to complex border procedures and limited private sector participation, great industries are barely scratching the surface, and new job opportunities are yet to be delivered at scale. Here in Nigeria, we're also watching closely. The federal government has designated Nigeria as Africa's digital trade champion, while the private sector platforms are convening to ask how the private sector really will step up under this free trade arrangement. At the same time, exporters report that moving a truck from Lagos to Accra now cost over 10.8 million naira, and that was about July this year. It sounds like clearly a barrier to seamless trade. As Lagos hosts the AfCFTA roadshow this week, and ahead of next month's forum and festival on tourism, culture, and creative industries in Ghana, the spotlight returns to one key question: how close are we to turning policy into prosperity? Joining us tonight to explore this is Dr. Ebeli Burundoria, Director of Trade and Services, Investment, Intellectual Property Rights, and Digital Trade at the AfCFTA Secretariat. Dr. Burundoria, welcome to Beyond the Headlines.
Thank you very much.
And welcome to Nigeria.
Thank you.
Have you tried the Nigerian jollof rice?
Of course. Now you want us to get into the jollof war.
So what do you think?
It is really nice. But you know, since I'm going back to Accra, I have to say Accra is nicer.
I'll take that one. I'll take that. Yeah. So let us talk about AfCFTA for a bit, right?
Yes.
When this came in force in 2021, it was hailed as Africa's most ambitious economic integration project. Yes. It's almost 5 years now. What's your honest assessment of how much trade is actually happening under the AfCFTA?
Thank you very much. And first, I have to congratulate you that you can actually confidently say AfCFTA.
Oh,
I know it's been quite a challenge, most like calling it after, but it is the AfCFTA. And the AfCFTA really is our, let me say, our way to prosperity as Africans, uniting Africa. I was just talking to someone today and said, you know what, United States of America used to be a number of states, the 54 states, and each was an individual state that came together to make the big United States of America. So that is really the ambition that Africa also has, that the 55 states in Africa can actually come together, trade together, even if you keep your different sovereignty, but you can just work together and trade together seamlessly. Now, having said that, you can actually see there has been an increase in terms of trade in the continent. Statistics are showing that in 2017, we were trading at, let's say, $140 billion. Now, in 2023, that had already increased to 190 billion US dollars. So that already shows the increase and the interest that within Africa now to work among themselves. We have growth, trade growth. The Afrexim Bank trade report is already indicating that growth of trade within the continent is now at 4.2%. Of course, the target was 5% by 2025, but we are getting there. So we are working, we are moving. And the advantage with the AfCFTA is that it is advocacy of what Africa can do for itself. And when I say advocacy, it means there is trade that will still go through our own, let's say, continental instruments that we have developed. That is the protocols on trade in goods, the tariff concessions that countries have given. There is the protocol on trade in services, and the commitments that countries have given to liberalize trade within the AfCFTA. But there is also the side part of it, that just because of the interest with the AfCFTA, now most countries have started getting interested to work together. You can now see Nigerian, I was teasing just during the conference today, that, you know, all African movies, we call them Nigerian movies, whether they are from
That's how big Nollywood is.
That's your big Nollywood. And that is something that Nigeria is actually exporting to the rest of the continent. So there is trade that is happening. It's just that also you may say there is a problem with recording the trade because we are used to trading goods. And that's why you will talk about the customs procedure. But there is also trading in services. And that is where Nollywood and what you're doing in Nollywood, the creatives, and that's what has brought us here today, also comes in. So yes, there is a lot of work that we still need to do, but I believe that we are getting there. We are moving and we are actually trading. It
sounds good, and I like your optimism. Yes. Many experts, however, say that the biggest challenge doesn't even have to do with political will, but infrastructure. We'll talk about ports, roads, and even digital systems that you need to connect African economies. We're looking at several reports now pointing to shipping delays, poor port facilities as major threats to the 2035 targets. Walk us through what specific interventions are underway to harmonize these systems for better service.
Thank you, and actually it is true. There is still a lot of challenges that we need to work through. Just this week, there was a summit, an infrastructural summit in Luanda in Angola, where our heads of states and also key stakeholder players in the infrastructure area met to actually look how do we deal with the infrastructure deficit that we have in the continent. And most of it, let me say, is that you can also have the private sector also getting involved to help governments to actually bridge this gap. And that was part of the intention with this summit. And one of the key areas that even apart from the AfCFTA, which many may not know, but AfCFTA is actually a flagship initiative under the African Union. So we are still part of the African Union. There are other flagships under the African Union, and one of them is the Single African Air Transport Market Initiative, which hopes to reduce and make it easy to actually travel by air within the continent. So there is also air cargo that we are talking about when we improve air transport. And that is part of what we are doing. And even at the AfCFTA, His Excellency Wamkele Mene, our Secretary General, has joined hands with other institutions under the AU to actually make it easier to implement the SATAM, as we call it. And that way, it will make it easier to travel between African countries. And one of the key elements that came out of that coming together is to say, why don't we make, if a flight is originating from Lagos going to Addis Ababa, how about making Accra it local? Or if I say Accra, we are still in ECOWAS. So I actually had to look for one that is outside ECOWAS.
Outside West Africa.
Yes. Yeah. So let's move to East Africa. So you're saying west to east. How about having those considered as domestic flights instead of saying you're going to another African country, your brothers, and you're still saying that it's an international flight, and so it's costing more for the passengers or even for cargo to then move from Lagos to go to Addis Ababa to Kigali. And so how do we move together and agree to reduce the charges that are charged on transport services in the continent? So that's really the essence of it.
And beyond infrastructure, there's what experts call sub-barriers: multiple licensing regimes, customs duplication, data protection rules, and currency differences. How soon should service providers really expect genuine ease of movement and simplified processes in this regard? Is it in the short term, or we're going to have to wait forever?
Let's hope we're not going to wait forever, and let's hope it will be in our generation that this will actually take place. And as you rightfully mentioned earlier, your country, Nigeria, is actually one of the champions of digital trade. And what we have done is that there is a protocol on digital trade that has already been developed and accepted and agreed under the AfCFTA. And so a lot has been done to harmonize the laws and regulations as they deals with digital trade. And in so doing, data protection also takes into account and also creates a market for how do we deal with data. You can have a data center in Nigeria, and then that data center can service the whole of the West African region. But already your data is already big enough. So there is also that. So, and then use that data to actually develop trade. So that is one of the key things that has already been done. Now, apart from that, there is digitization of customs procedures. So when we talk about digitization of customs procedures, what we are really talking about is simplifying the licensing and what the number of processes that you will have to go through when you get to a border between, let's say, for Nigeria, between Nigeria and Benin, between Nigeria, is it also Togo?
Yes, there is Benin.
Geography.
Benin
so I know Benin for sure.
Yes, and then after you go to
then there is Cote d'Ivoire on one side, Cameroon on the other side. And you know, when you do Cameroon, you've already entered Central Africa.
Absolutely.
So then, and that is even a better example for us. Talk about the border between Nigeria and Cameroon. That is now Central Africa and West Africa. You need then to actually use the instruments that have been developed under the AfCFTA to make that easier to trade with Central Africa. So all that is in the pipeline. We already have great examples from East Africa where they have been able to reduce the number of procedures that are required, let's say, to move a cargo from the port of Mombasa to Kigali in Rwanda. It used to take about 14 days for that. But now they've reduced it to 3 days, and it's through digitization. And now they even want to make it easier using smart gates. So yes, there is a lot of work that is already in place, and now how do we emulate that and bring it to West and Central Africa?
One of the biggest worries is that the secretary, your secretariat, relies too much on national governments, and you know they often move slowly. So how do you ensure?
That's our constituency, so we have to speak kindly of them.
Okay, please do. But I'm just concerned about how you ensure momentum isn't lost to bureaucracy, you know, in this regard.
And it won't. And that's where we also call on the private sector to speak to their different governments, because ours is really an intergovernmental organization. What does that mean? We bring together the governments to actually look at the laws and regulations, the policies that they are creating, to say, please, we need policies that actually enhance trade, policies that create a good environment for trade. And that's our work, and that's what we are doing. But who implements the agreement? The agreement is going to be implemented by the private sector, because it's private sector that actually trades. And so that is where we can say the tire hits the road, you know. And so that is what we are working on. We have to admit there was a lot of negotiations that needed to be concluded, but I'm happy to report, and through His Excellency Wam Kelemene, our Secretary General, that most of that now has already been done. Negotiations are being finalized. Now we are fully going to be engaged on implementation. And actually that's part of the reason why we are here today in Lagos.
I'd like us to touch on that briefly before you go, because we've also talked about mobility being crucial. Artists, digital entrepreneurs, professionals, they should be able to move freely across Africa, and that has been a challenge. Walk us through your expectation, the plans that the AfCFTA protocol on trade and services, you know, has to make that easier, similar to what you've talked about for goods and services.
Okay, so let me put it in context. We have two major protocols that need to be implemented. The protocol on trade in goods, and that's to ensure that we have ease of movement of goods, and the protocol on trade in services that ensures there is ease in terms of trade in services. Now, why these two main protocols? Because we are trading in goods and services. And also, within these two protocols, we have the tariff concessions when we talk about goods, and we have the commitments of trade in services when we talk about the protocol on trade in services. Now, when countries make their commitments, what are they saying? We are liberalizing trade in services. We are going to allow for ease of movement of services within the continent. And so that is where the tourism, cultural and creative sectors also fall in within the protocol on trade in services. And so we are here today to say we are moving forward with implementation. We have about 25 countries that have already committed. We are in the final stages of the Nigeria's commitment through the ECOWAS group. And so we hope to create a full single market in the area of trade in services. And so we have started the implementation. We are bringing together investors, we are bringing together the creators, and we are bringing together policymakers, all the key stakeholders, to come to Accra in November 24th to 26th to actually discuss what are the issues that are affecting these three sectors, and that is the tourism, cultural and creative industries, and particularly the film, music, and fashion industries. And that's partly why I had to
why you're dressed as a Nigerian. And it fits you very well. We have to go now. If you would send a message to the Nigerian government or to one of the Nigerian firms and creatives tonight, what would it be? What must we do right away to capture AfCFTA's promise?
What I would say is, when you get into the creatives, and here for Nigeria, you already have the market. You have Nollywood. How to take advantage of what you already have, your economies of scale, and also then embrace the rest of the continent. Let us see more of Nollywood in other African countries, so that we can rebrand what is considered to be African, so that we can speak one language as Africans, and we can rebrand Africa and reimagine the Africa that we want, giving stories of Africa, inspiring stories, said in the way that we want. So let us now connect Africa creatively.
Dr. Emily Mborundoria, Director of Trade and Services, AfCFTA Secretariat, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Well, that's our show today, everyone. Moving goods from Lagos to Accra, as you have heard, things have to get better and faster, and we're really hopeful that the dream for this continental free trade is going to come to fruition soon. As you've seen tonight, translating that promise into prosperity will take more than ratified protocols. It will take roads and rules that work, borders that breathe, and governments that keep pace with Africa's entrepreneurs and creatives. Many still see AfCFTA as a long game, but Dr. Mborundoria reminds us that integration is already in motion. And the question is now, how fast can we all move together? I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Thank you for watching Beyond the Headlines. See you again soon.